Hello my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're talking about the newest collaboration from ColourPop with Makeup by Shayla. I have this beautiful palette, it's called the Perception palette, and I also have all three of the Luxe lipstick shades that ColourPop released in collaboration with Shayla. There are 3 more pieces to this collection that I chose not to order. There are 2 loose highlighters, and there's also a gloss. I just felt that the gloss wasn't too exciting. I like ColourPop glosses, but that one just didn't really grab my attention, and the 2 highlighters also look very beautiful, but I just didn't think they would work for my skin tone. So I grabbed the palette, of course. You know, I always got to get every new ColourPop palette that comes out. I'm a huge fan of the Luxe lipsticks, so I have all 3 of Shayla's shades. I did just place an order for some of the new matte Luxe lipsticks that ColourPop recently released, so that video will be coming soon. Whenever I get those, I'll be doing a lip swatch video, but that's another video for another day. At the time that I'm filming this, all of the Shayla items are out of stock on the ColourPop website. They are set to restock the entire collection on Friday, May 11th. I'm going to try my best to get this video up before then so that you can see what you're interested in before you rush to order. Of course, I'm wearing a bunch of the products on my face today, so I will do a quick tutorial. Stick around to the end of the video to see how I got this look. First, let's do some product info. I want to talk about these Luxe lipsticks first. These Luxe lipsticks have the exact same packaging as their permanent lipsticks. However, the outer packaging is this very cool splatter paint dripping pattern that's also on the palette. The 3 shades are called, oh, how do you say that? Ooh, which is a pale tangerine sort of peachy color. There's Quickie, which is a pale tan with a yellow undertone. And lastly, we have Come On Sis, which is a medium pinky mauve. These Luxe lipsticks retail for $7, which is the standard price for the permanent Luxe lipsticks. There is also a bundle for all 3 of the Shayla shades. The bundle is $21, so you're not saving anything but a couple of extra clicks by buying the bundle. I'm surprised by how light these shades are. I know in the spring, summer, we start seeing more of these peachy pinky shades coming out. I wasn't expecting like a full vamp or anything, but basically from the marketing images that ColourPop released, they showed these paint dripping, very like edgy, sexy, kind of dark images, which I found very exciting. I was super intrigued when I saw these marketing images before I saw the products. So that's probably what threw me off. I was just expecting more of like a dark, edgy, sexy kind of look. So while I think these shades are pretty, with the exception of the peachy orange one, which I think looks awful on me, I'm sure it looks great on you, but it looks terrible on me. So I like the shades. I think they're pretty. They just weren't what I was expecting. Now for the part that we've all been waiting for, we're going to talk about the Perception palette. Again, we're seeing this really cool paint splattered, paint dripping type of pattern on both the outer carton and the palette itself. I love the packaging on the palette. I think this is so pretty. It's unique, it's edgy, but it's not so out there. It still kind of fits in with the ColourPop aesthetic, but it's definitely something a little bit different for them. This is a nice size. You can see it here compared to the Yes Please palette. The Perception palette is a square instead of a rectangle, since it does have that extra row of shadows inside. Their typical palettes have 12 shades, and the Perception palette has 16 shades. This Perception palette has some features that I really enjoy aside from just the cool packaging. There is a nice big mirror inside, very clear, definitely usable. I love that the names of the shades are printed on the back, and they're also printed inside next to the pans. We love that feature. It's just a little detail, but us palette junkies just really appreciate that. The Perception palette is retail priced at $23. We already mentioned that this palette has 16 shades instead of their standard 12 shades. When I first opened this palette, I thought that the pans looked like they might be slightly smaller than the standard pans, but according to the label here on the palette, these actually have slightly more product in them, just comparing it to this Yes Please palette that I had sitting out on my vanity. The label on the back of the Yes Please palette says that each eyeshadow pan contains 0.85 grams of product. And the Perception palette says that each pan has 1.1 grams of product. It's a small difference, but it starts to add up when you take into account that there are 16 eyeshadow pans in here. The Perception palette has a total of 17.6 grams of product, and at $23 that comes out to just around $1.31 per gram. When you compare that to the Yes Please palette, that one has 10.2 grams of product, and at $16 for the palette, that comes out to just about $1.57 per gram. So you're actually getting a better price per gram on the Perception palette, plus you're getting a mirror, and it's a collab. What has happened to the world? So based on numbers alone, this Perception palette is definitely a good value for your dollar. I'm gonna do swatches of the eyeshadow palette now. I'm gonna do both finger and brush swatches. On the back of my hand, not using any primer at all. For my brush swatches, I'll be using my e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush, and I'll clean off in between each shade using my Veramona color switch. For all of my palette swatches, the finger swatches will be on top, and then the brush swatches will be below. Here's the top row. We have Unbothered, TF, Titus, and Stallion. These are all shimmers. The first two are more metallic. This gunmetal gray is more of a satiny finish, particularly with the brush. And then this last dark blue shade has a bunch of blue micro glitters. Here's the second row of the palette. Again, we have all shimmers here. This first one is called Spill the Tea. Next we have Diva. This green shade is called IE. And lastly, a blue called 14. As usual, the shimmers apply a lot better with a finger. These are done with a dry brush, so if you dampened your brush first, then these would apply really beautifully with a brush as well. This is the third row of the Perception palette. This rusty shimmer shade is called Strut and Slay. Next, the first matte we've encountered in this palette. This is called Culture. Next up is Sassy, that classic blue to brown duochrome. And lastly, this pinky lilac called September. This is another one of those more pearly shimmer shades. This is the last row of the palette. This is where all the mattes have been hiding. This first brick red matte is called Revenge. Then a bright orange matte called Thick. A deep brown called Played Out. And then a purpley brown with purple micro glitters called Shade. This feels familiar. I did not see this coming. This is a major plot twist. When I was swatching the Perception palette, I started to feel a deja vu of another palette that I'd swatched. And you can see here that my deja vu was pretty right on. These are the Perception palette. Care to take a guess what these swatches on this side are? This is the Too Faced Life's a Festival palette, and this is the ColourPop Perception palette. Now, I'm not saying these shades are exact dupes, but they are gonna give you the same looks. We really went in a different direction outer packaging wise, didn't we? Obviously, these palettes are not dupes. You're getting a lot more shades in the Perception palette, and you're getting a lot of those deep dark shades and a few just general neutral, bronzy, goldy, that kind of shades that you're not getting in the Life's a Festival palette. Beyond just being inspired to quickly compare them in these swatches, I'm not going to compare these two palettes. I don't think they're all that similar. I just wanted to see them side by side because that little light bulb went off in my brain while I was swatching. So I'm not saying they're dupes. I don't think that ColourPop copied Too Faced. I was just curious. I wanted to share that information with you. If you already have this Too Faced palette, then you really probably don't need to get this one because the other shades that are in here, you probably have elsewhere in your collection. No shade to Shayla, no shade to ColourPop. This kind of looks like this one too. Am I losing it? Don't answer that. Okay, we're gonna do another round of comparisons because these look similar as well. So, here's the thing. After comparing the Life's a Festival palette to Perception, and I said these other shades that Life's a Festival doesn't have, you probably have them in your collection. Well, here it is again. So on this side, we have the Perception palette. Anybody want to guess what this palette is? Any guesses? This one is the Dream Street palette. Very, very similar looks coming out of these two palettes. Again, they're not dupes. Well, some of these shades, like these shades right here are dead on. This one right here, that's a dead on dupe. These are the exact same shades, I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of these other ones, like the blues, are similar, not the same, but similar. These two are pretty much the same. We got a bright pop of orange, a bright pop of red instead. It's pretty similar, guys. You're getting the same eye looks out of these shades for the most part. Subtle differences, but kinda not. There are only so many eyeshadow colors in the world, and they're bound to be seen over and over again. We all know that's true. So now that you've seen the swatches, let's jump into the tutorial using this Perception palette, and then I'll wrap up all the rest of my thoughts at the end. I'm starting off my look just like I always do by priming my eyes with my favorite eye base. It's the MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly. Then I just set that eye base using my NYX HD finishing powder so that it's not too sticky. Now we're going into the Perception palette, and I'm taking this gorgeous shade called Culture. I'm working that into my crease. I think this is one of the prettiest, easiest to use mattes that I've tried in a while. Now I'm going to just add a little bit of drama to that outer corner. I'm mixing Played Out and Shade. These dark shades are really, really pigmented, so I'm just using the tiniest little bit on my brush and then blending that in. For my overall lid color, I'm mixing Diva and IE. I just kind of swirled my finger around in both shades and then patted that right onto my lid for a beautiful greenish gold. Now I'm going to deepen up the outer corner just a little bit. Again, just taking the tiniest bit of the shade Played Out and stamping it on my outer corner. Now I'm going to use Culture on a flat brush, and I'm going to smoke that along the lower lash line. Again, taking Played Out just a little small bit and putting that right on the very outer edge of my lower lash line. Then I'm going to go back with the original brush, and I'm just going to blend everything together with no additional product. Now for my inner corner highlight, I'm using the shade Unbothered on a very small detail brush, and I'm packing that around my inner corner and also just a little bit across the brow bone as well. Then I curled my lashes and I added some of my all-time favorite L'Oreal Lash Paradise mascara. Then for my lips, I used the shade Come On Sis all over, and then I added just a little bit of Quickie right in the center. That's it for my finished look. I love how this turned out. It's still really wearable, but it's something different for me, and I absolutely love this lip combo. All in all, I do like this palette. I like the 16 pan size. I like the packaging a lot. Love that nice big mirror. As far as price per gram goes, it's a great value, but like we saw from the swatches, if you have Too Faced Life's a Festival palette and the ColourPop Dream Street palette, you basically already have all of these shades. Now, I already owned both of those palettes, but if you don't have Life's a Festival and Dream Street, then you can save a bundle by just getting the Perception palette. You're gonna get a lot of the exact same or very, very similar looks that you would get from those two palettes. So when I compare those palettes, I'm not saying that this is bad or it's not worth it. I just kind of started to take note that a lot of those shades felt very familiar to me, and that's just the nature of makeup and the nature of eyeshadow palettes. There are bound to be similarities. Overall, I think that this is nice. For only having 4 mattes, I think that they were very strategic in how they chose those mattes. They're gonna be useful on a lot of different skin tones, and the mattes in here were really, really good. I enjoyed the mattes even more than the shimmers. Really pigmented, easy to work with. That crease shade that I used just went on like a dream. It practically applied itself. I do find myself wishing for a more neutral and a more cool toned brown. That could really open up the range of this palette. If you're just going to use these shades and not pull in any other eyeshadows, then you're basically really gonna have to do a warm crease, and then, you know, choose your lid color. I do think that's really user friendly. That takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, particularly for people who are just starting out in makeup or who aren't really sure how to pair their eyeshadow shades. There's no law that says you can't use a shimmery shade in your crease. Just in general, I prefer to use a matte shade as my transition. I know a lot of others do too. Not a huge fan of these glitter packed matte shades. I would like to see these shades go and see mattes in their place. I hope it didn't come off as me bashing this palette, because that's really not what it is. We're just exploring. I'm trying to get information out there for you. That's all this is about. Overall, I'm a fan of this palette. I'm glad I bought it. I really like my eye look. I know it's going to inspire me to do more colorful looks as I grab these rainbow shadows. I'd love to know what you think about this collection. Did you order it during the initial release? Are you eagerly awaiting the restock? Leave a comment and let us know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Huge fan of talking would be helpful. That would be a thing you should do. Okay. Pop, 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 pop. Out. What? You make no sense. Rose gold details. West Virginia's coming out. Oh. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. Math is hard. And go what? You've lost your mind. We got a lot of swatching to do, so let's get to it. There's eyeshadow all over my pants right now. Those pops of color that jump out. People are gonna be coming for me in the comments now, I have a feeling. It's not my fault, I didn't choose the shades. What do you want me to do, just not say anything to you? Can't do that. No shade, Shayla, no shade. This lipstick is really starting to give me a gross butthole lip line. Trying my best to avoid it. Oh well. That was really unattractive. Okay. Maybe the price per gram in this palette is so much lower because they already had some of the shades on hand. Oh my gosh, that was so shady. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said that. It was funny though. Oh man. I'm gonna go now. Bye-bye.